Do a quick audio check in 90 seconds or so when the audio catches up.
All right. My audio is still nice and hot, or did it cool
Sounds
off
good
again?
so far.
Good. And that setting I set held this time.
Yeah, I had to, even the audio you sent me last week was really, really low. I had to bump it a lot.
Well, let's hope that it doesn't fall on us again. That was crazy trying to adjust it on the fly. I couldn't hold it up. I mean, even if I held the slider, clicked and held, it would then come out of my grip and slide down. It was nuts.
I'll be glad when the summer gets over, because I haven't been finding a lot of news stories that I've liked.
Well, it's been so long since we did any news, I guess it's all right.
Yeah, people got tired of saying, well, if Element Opie's not going to cover us, we're just not going to do anything.
Check 1 2 level check. Make sure that's
level check.
Not
Level
too hot.
check.
All right. That's audio levels is always a tricky thing, right? You don't want to blow it away, but you want it just hot enough.
Yep.
All right, we ready to roll? Recorder is going.
My recorder is running now.
I am recording.
I'm sorry, Dave. I can't let you do that.
All right. Turn my AC off. That's what I'm getting from you.
Really? I can bring it down a little bit.
No, it's all right. I'd rather have something to clean up than low audio.
Okay. Then I won't worry about it. I'll let you do it in post.
I didn't come up with a better show title.
Well, yeah. Sorry.
Let's see. I know you just put that there as a filler, and I kept thinking I need to come back and do something, and then I didn't.
Yeah, I was thinking of all the news that's fit to print, so.
We've done so. It's hard to come up with a unique title.
Yeah.
Yeah, somebody really needs to go
so
through.
Hard to come up with it.
Somebody needs to go through and number all of our news shows so we can say, News 57 or whatever we are.
Have a sub-show category for with a different count number.
Yeah, Distro Review 97, Ubuntu 78 or whatever.
We did, I don't know if you guys remember, we did have a listener say he wanted to come on the show and do a distro review. And I sent him an email say, hey, we're going to be taking July off. I'll get back with you early August. Yeah, that didn't happen. So I need to get back with him about that.
There you go.
Because it's not early August anymore. We got one more. This is the 4th Sunday. Only because it's a 5th Sunday month do we have another one.
Yep.
Well, if we worked for the government, this would still be early August.
Yes. It's still Q3, so.
That is true.
So, since we're recording live, I'm not going to mention it, but that sponsor that I said we might have on the line has tentatively agreed to taking out an ad for all of Q4 this year.
Ooh.
Sweet.
And I say tentatively because I hadn't gotten a check yet. But,
sure.
I sent an invoice, and we agreed on terms. So, kind of excited about that.
Yeah.
One One more step until we rule the world.
Because it's not just another sponsor, but a sponsor buying a full quarter.
Yeah.
And then probably once they see the return on that, they'll say, yeah, thanks, that was fun, bye. But we'll see.
Well, it's still 1 month of advertisement.
Yeah. And a service I'm happy to advertise for because I'm really impressed with them.
I told you.
All right, here we go. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Everyday Linux, episode 202. It's hard to come up with a unique title. Recorded August 23rd, 2015, and brought to you by Element Opie Productions. ElementOpie.com. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to the Linux show that's not about Linux, but about life in the context of Linux. I am your host, Mark, the Sultan of the Soapbox Cockerel, and joining me this week, as always, are your two stalwart co-hosts, Chris, the Command Line Godfather Neves, and Seth, the Gooey Kid Anderson. Hello, gentlemen.
Well, hello, Mark, and everyone out there in the lovely audience that we have. Bring your questions. We might have answers.
Mark, you need just a little bit more whining when you came up with that title. It was good on the fly, but, next time, it's hard. So,
But I was going to go to Tashi Station and pick up some power converters.
With my friends. So,
Mark Hamill to this day defends his reading of that line, saying he was trying to get across how immature Luke Skywalker was. Yeah, that's a reverse a revision of history there.
I don't know. I thought he was pretty immature.
Yeah.
So, I thought it fit the situation. So
It did. Yeah, I mean, it was the story of Luke Skywalker going from a whiny kid to a whiny adult. But through the 3 episodes, he became, he came into his own, and he became. But that first show, he was still pretty much a brat. We used to bullseye womp rats not at that distance. They're not much bigger than 2 meters.
Yeah. Oh,
hey, anybody who can become a Jedi Master on the trip that takes like 4.3 parsecs.
Yeah. So that's I think we may have had that discussion before. How long did that movie take? In my mind, it was always like a couple of years. But I've heard other people say the whole movie takes place in like 5 days. And it's interesting because you don't really get any time references in the movie. It's this thing happens and this thing. But in my mind, it had always been months, if not years, of training. In between the two things. What did you take away? Obviously, Seth, you thought it took place in a very short period of time.
Yeah, his trip from the time Luke gets involved, till he's doing whatever was just a couple of days. I thought a couple of months tops, but I didn't see how it was a long period of time. There was too much of it building on top of each other for it to have been a long period of time.
See, in my mind, he stayed with Ben for a long time, and then it was a long journey across Tatooine to Mos Eisley, and then that took a while. I mean, that went quickly. But then in the ship with the Millennium Falcon, they're avoiding the Empire, and they're snaking around and that, and so that took a while. And then the trip to Alderaan, or where Alderaan should have been, took a while. That, in my mind, those things added up in week increments, even month increments, not days. Chris, what about you?
I looked at it when I was watching, and I've rewatched it a couple of times with my son just recently, and we had this discussion. And what we both kind of took away from it was maybe quarter of a year, maybe 4 months. It just never felt like it had any. There was no like, oh, remember that time? There's no thought back.
Right.
It felt like it was all current information all the way through.
All right. That's just, I don't know why I felt so differently, but I'm curious to see, audience. Am I in the minority there? Did you all think it took place in a few days to a few weeks at the most? Because I guess my thing was you can't get that good at the Force that fast. And so maybe made me retroactively add time to things.
He's a prodigy,
Maybe he
Mark.
was just that good. Huh?
That's true.
You never know.
I mean, in the Sarah Connor Chronicles, the hacker kid can be advanced in time 5 years and still be a genius in top of the field. So just because he read a blog or something that said, oh, yeah, here's what I need to update my skills, bam. like a boss.
Which one did that come out of?
The Sarah Chronic, the Terminator series. They
Like a
went
TV
forward
series?
It was a
in-
TV
they went
series.
I
forward in
vaguely
time.
remember that.
Yeah, they went forward in time, like from the like the initial show, and then at the end of the pilot, they like went forward a couple of years, and he's still this uber cyber genius type person.
That was the one with the female Terminator.
Yes.
I can't remember
Yep.
the actress's name. Yeah, I casually watched that if it was on. I watched it. I didn't make an appointment to watch it. I didn't DVR it, but it was like, yeah, if it's on, I'll turn it on. It just wasn't enough to get my attention.
You watched it probably more than I did then.
I mean,
'cause
when the
think I watched
Terminators-
one episode.
When the Terminator crosses some amount of dozens of miles without a head to find his own head, he kind of lost me right there.
Yeah.
I mean, true, the CPU doesn't have to be in the head, and in fact, that's kind of a dumb place to put it. You should put it in the chest, where that's the most protection, or distributed throughout the body, different nodes. You know, I get that. So he doesn't have to have the head. But how did he find his own head?
Radio
Wi-Fi.
waves. Wi-Fi. He had a geosynchronous location in it.
So each part of his body sends out a homing signal if it's lost. So would the hand crawl back to him if the hand got cut off?
RFID
well.
is everywhere, Mark.
It's the cell
It
phone
will-
tracking that we've been talking about. That's the
Yes.
danger. The Terminator will find his own head.
Pretty much.
That's pretty much how they worded that, didn't they?
Yeah. All right, so I wanted to use the vast power of our audience to. I got a weird thing happening. I've got a Zoom H1 handy recorder. It's been a few years old. Last week, it glitched out on me. Showed that the hard drive, the SD card in it was full before it was. So I reformatted it, and it seems to be working fine. It's recording and all that stuff. Except, did I hit the record button? Yeah, I did. Okay, so it's recording and doing that. But weirdly, the display now is like showing every character on the screen. You know, it's an LED display, so there's everything that can make every character is like ghosted, and then the actual characters are brighter or darker, I guess is the way to put it. And the end result is I can only look at it from an angle to read it, which is fine because as I sit here using it most of the time, I'm looking at it askance. But I don't know, something about reformatting it from the Linux machine, maybe I should have reformatted it from a Windows machine, caused that. So audience, have you ever heard of that? It doesn't hamper the overall functioning of it, but like today I had to reset the time on it because I had let the power too long, and I had to like tilt it at just the right angle. It was sort of like, you know, playing one of those table games where you roll the ball into the holes just to kind of be able to see it while I'm pushing buttons.
That's an interesting one. Nope. I don't know anything about it.
So is that like the screen where you're like looking at the picture that it's recording?
Right. It sort of looks like burn-in, but
Yeah,
it only
yeah.
happens when it's powered on.
Oh, I was going to say, have you tried maybe leave it on for a little bit, pointed at just a white piece of paper or something super white, and
I'll
see,
try The white
because
balance.
that is the actual fix for some TVs where that happens. If you get kind of burn in, you just play white for a few hours and it kind of corrects
No,
itself.
it's not a camera. It's a video recording device, audio recording device. It's a display like a
Oh.
digital clock.
Oh, okay.
Like that kind of LCD, cheap gray monochrome LCD display.
Oh, I got nothing.
And yeah, so you know how when you're looking at a clock, you can see all the numbers, but only part of it's lit up. You know, so
Right.
it's an 8, but only one side of the 8 is lit up to make a
Sure.
1. This one I can see everything slightly turned on, but not fully bright.
That's interesting.
Weird.
Hmm.
So it's
That-
my
yeah.
backup recorder, so it's not critical, and as long as it's working, it's not important enough for me to spend $50 to go get another one. But it is an
Right.
odd thing, and this audience seems to like odd things.
Yeah. Who knows? Maybe someone's got the fix in their back pocket and they just need to send it in.
And I suspect the fix is plugged into a Windows machine.
Which would go great for our everyday Linux podcast.
Yes. Seth, now that you've got bandwidth, might you be joining the League of the Cord Cutters?
You know, I am. We were talking a little bit on this pre-show. I have when Netflix or when The Walking Dead first came out, I was kind of meh. I didn't really care. It didn't grab me. But I've been watching it as they've been doing their marathon and I love it how their seasons are like 5 or 6 shows long. But I'm really getting kind of caught up in it, and I kind of want to go back and watch it from the beginning, all of them in order. So I could see myself getting or renewing my subscription to Netflix and throwing yet more money away and becoming more of a slave to the man.
It is what it is. Says when you do cut the cord, there are some things you will miss. Just
I still have to have satellite for my dad to watch Fox News on the TV.
Okay.
So I wouldn't be cutting the cord. I would just be adding another bill. You know, the American way.
Yes.
So
There you go. See, we cut the cord here, and the only thing that we so far have found hard to replace is football. Everything else seems to have, either an online stream or the next day stream. But who wants to watch football the next day? As like a afterthought.
I discovered last week a resource for that, Chris. It's entirely illegal. But if you're interested, I can tell you how to find. What's interesting is it's illegal, and there's a guy charging you for it. So it can kind of make you feel good if you want to say, "Well, I'm paying for this." But
is he offering to indemnify you against?
Yeah. What the website, and I'm not going to say the name, but it sounds like it might be officially sanctioned. And then you go to the website, and there's like the logo and a login blank, and that's it. So as soon as I saw that, I was like, oh, that doesn't look officially sanctioned. Because at first I was like, the Google search box makes it sound reasonable, and because you're paying for it, okay, great, But then it's like there's nothing there but a login and a sign up. There's no about, there's no information, there's no terms and conditions. So then I started doing a little more research, and essentially a guy has hacked another legal app and has made the data streams available through an app that he made. So, but if you're interested, and if you don't care so much about,
is it Roku friendly?
Yes, there is a Roku app for it.
That's awesome. I am so surprised it's not off the market yet.
Well, that's what's interesting. But it looks like, well, I don't know. But yeah, there's apps for both mobile, maybe Windows too, but definitely iOS and Android and Roku, and it plugs in. There's Kodi plugins for XBMC people and stuff like that. And this guy or group of guys are making these apps and selling these apps, and you've got a subscription service that you pay for. All for completely illegal content.
You don't know that they're guys.
That's true. I'm showing my sexism there. Most criminals are guys, apparently. I was impressed by the just utter audacity of it.
Yeah, I'm kind of impressed with it because that takes balls. The giant cojones.
So again, you're assuming they're guys too, Chris. Man, y'all are like some sexist people. Are women not smart enough to be hackers in y'all's world?
They're just not devious enough.
Oh, that's not right either.
Come on, Mark.
So I downloaded the part of the stream that does NFL Network and Red Zone because I get both of those legally, so that made me feel okay about it. And the quality is darn near perfect, and it streamed to me. I had the NFL Network on my satellite up, and I had this on my laptop, and it was about 90 seconds to 2 minutes delayed, but everything was there, and I was just really impressed by that. But again, because I don't want to condone this, do your own Google search.
It's out there. You just need to find it.
It's 3 letters, a number, and 2 letters. So that wouldn't be hard to figure that out. And it's specifically for mobile apps, so you could probably figure out the last 2 letters.
Yeah.
Okay. You, when I first called you on the Hangout, you answered from your other house, so you're
I did.
busy about moving in.
We were finishing up all the last touch-up paint and all the stuff, so we could start moving all our gear over. So yeah, I'm still trying to figure out how I'm going to get network to my new place because it's an old home, and the room that was deemed Chris's room, there's no network jacks, there's no phone jacks, there's no cable jacks, there's nothing in it other than power. So I'm trying to figure out how I'm going to get network into it so that way I can join you guys again. Because at this point, there's no network over there at all, and the phone lines are horrible.
Well, just run your own Cat 5. It's not that hard.
I know. That's what I'm going to end up doing it anyway. It just was like I was hoping I could I could sneak it in through, like pulling back the cable.
Is there a basement?
There is, but it's sealed. It's all finished. So spousal approval of just dropping the ceiling and running everything is very, very low possibility.
So my old house, there wasn't a basement. There was a crawl space, and I grabbed a young 18-year-old kid who was willing to work for a couple of bucks an hour and a case of beer, and I made him crawl under the house, and I drilled holes from above and said, "Run this over here," and then I'd knock on the floor. "Over here. Walk to where I'm knocking. Follow the sound." "Okay, good. Now I'm shining this light through the hole. Stick it up through there." And so, yeah, it was great. It was easy for me.
Yeah. We're going to be doing something similar, but instead of using the basement, we're going to end up doing a lot of. I'm hoping we can get away with a lot of just fishing wire and tape or fish sticks.
Fish tapes.
Yeah. Between me and my buddy, we should be able to get it all taken care of in a couple of hours, but I'm just not looking forward to doing it.
I just think it should be U.S. construction code that every room has at least 2 empty conduits in it. I just think that should be standard.
Well, it makes things so much easier. And if I ever demo this house down or rip the basement down, I'm going to be running, actual conduit runs to every room. It's just I don't want to do it now because I think my wife would probably kill me if I said I need to go buy some more stuff. She hasn't seen the price tag for the communication center. Yeah. I don't think she's going to like that too much.
Yeah, so the good way to do it is to have the person below drill up through the footer, and you cut a hole in the sheetrock and fish it up and then put a nice plate on there. Now, I just cut a little square out of the carpet, drilled a hole in there, and put the square in the carpet back. And
there you go.
That's the way I did it. You can do that when you own the house.
Yep. That's stuff I can do if I want to. But it'll be interesting to see how well the lighting is going to be in the new place because it's not as anywhere near as well lit as this current location. So it'll be interesting. We'll have fun with it and see how much more light I have to buy.
The main light source across from me is one of those garage motion sensor lights screwed into an extension cord and hanging from an old mic stand, so that when I come in and I do this, it comes on. So yeah, you don't have to be sophisticated at all.
You don't have to be, but you guys have known me for how long? Do I ever do the easy thing?
Ironically, as we were talking about my backup recording and the need for it, my computer crashed. No, the main computer just crashed. So turned out to be a good thing. I had it running.
That's good.
So
no more lost episodes.
Yeah, yes. There are 3 different recording sources every time I do a show now since the last lost episode. I try to make sure that never happens. I really need to just buy a new laptop. I've been saying that for years because every time I patch this one, I put another Band-Aid on it. But no, it's really kind of garbage at this point. So anyway, I had just something I wanted to discuss, more of a philosophical discussion than an actual technical. I experimented for the first time with OwnCloud this last week. I've started doing another podcast on the Podnuts Network. I'm now the host of the Android App Addicts podcast. Their host stepped away. I've been a listener to the show for a while, so it was a good opportunity for me to step in. But anyway, the owner of that network, Door to Door Geek, or your friend and mine, when I was looking to send him the files, he said, well, I've got an OwnCloud server set up. And if you don't know about OwnCloud, it's essentially Dropbox that you host. And so he's got it running on a Banana Pi, and I downloaded the client on my machine, and it works just like Dropbox, and it syncs partials and all that sort of stuff. So the technology is solid, and so I don't really need to talk about that. But the what got me to thinking about the whole thing is the concept of OwnCloud. So, being the open source do-it-yourself guys that you are, we all tend to want to jump into that. Hey, this is great. I own my content. I'm not giving my stuff to Google or somebody else. But as I got to thinking about it, it occurred to me that we're kind of giving up almost all the benefits of, say, a Dropbox or something like that when we use OwnCloud, because we're not getting it's not on somebody else's server. It's on our bandwidth and our servers, and it's costing us, and there's a single point of failure. So, Chris, we'll start with you. What are your thoughts on just that whole concept of the value of distributing stuff, but distributing it on your own stuff, your own hardware?
Right. So I've been dealing with that particular thought for a long time, because I would love to get off of all the cloud-based services that I'm using, Dropbox, Google Drive, Copy.com. But I keep coming back down to the fact that I don't have the resources to be bulletproof like these other. It would take a global catastrophe, because they have so many different data centers. Same thing with Google Drive and Copy.com. I don't have that type of resources available to me. So that's my biggest thing, is because I store stuff in there encrypted that, it's on 4 different computers, but it's also in their data center replicated who knows how many times.
So the do-it-yourself, the open sourcer would say, well, the 3 of you guys could host each other's files. You each set up your own cloud server, and then you host your own files, and you've got redundancy that way. But then that's 3 people doing the work. And it's still an inferior network. It's using 3 home quality networks. I guess you could rent a hosting provider and build a server there, right? Do a virtual server somewhere. But then you're like 5 times the cost of a Dropbox. It seems to be an idealistical win, but only idealistic.
Yeah, I'm with you there. When it comes to, I would love to have a group of people that I would trust with my data like that, but I just have a hard time trusting anybody with my data. So, unless I'm doing it pre-uploading for encryption, that's the choice you're going to play there.
Right. Seth, what are your thoughts on this? Anything?
Well, for important private or security stuff, I don't put it on the cloud. I have a couple of local copies of it. So having an on cloud, to me, for just, stuff that is, it's stuff I've acquired that I like to keep. Dropbox is fine. Google Drive is fine, whatever. But if like something that I have passwords on, or things like that, financial data, that's not really going to go on a Dropbox account. That's not going to go on Google Drive. So something like that on cloud, to me, that would be the use for it. Is something that just the tinfoil visor in me doesn't want to store on somebody else's cloud, because then I only control it so long as they allow me to access it, and then I have no idea who does what with the backups or whatever. And of course, you can make the argument that, well, you're going over other people's routers and it's not your stuff and blah, blah, blah. I understand. Like I say, it's just the tinfoil visor in me. It's the nature of the beast. I would use it for things that I didn't want to store in somebody else's cloud. But I wouldn't use it for the, documents, things I do, show ideas for this or things. I don't, I mean, it would be nice to be able to access those, but it's not going to end my life if I lose them. But, the password to my bank account that's only available online, that's kind of important, and that's not going on a cloud somewhere.
Well, it's relatively trivial to encrypt a volume in the Dropbox and have everything, have the encrypted data distributed. And in fact, that's how I handle my secure stuff. I have an encrypted chunk of data that I put on Dropbox, and it gets shared out, and I own the keys to that. So in terms of the whole security thing, it takes a couple of extra steps, but you can make it secure. So I could host your encrypted data, Chris. You could host my encrypted data, and even if our trust relationship person to person broke down, I wouldn't be able to break your data, assuming you did reasonable encryption on it, and vice versa. But and part of me likes that sense of community, right? We're home growing it. We're doing our thing. It literally is my own cloud. There, CrashPlan is a similar sort of thing. I've talked about when I was working with schools, I had this grand plan to have a bunch of different schools set up backup PC servers at each other's locations, so that you could get the benefit of offsite backups. Invariably, it never worked out. It's always the human element that falls apart, not the technological element. But also, there's the fact that, like I said earlier, it's consumer-grade networks. It is always difficult to make those kind of connections without a third party. So I don't know how OwnCloud does it. Maybe they have a connection server out in the cloud, sort of like Skype does, a supernode kind of thing, that helps make those connections. And then you talk back and forth. I haven't looked into it, but just the idea of, there are times when I think it is actually better to trust somebody else with your data, which I know the tinfoil hat people just shouted. They're right now yelling at their podcast players, saying it's never okay to trust Google. It's never okay to trust Dropbox. Don't you remember Dropbox had this story in the news a while back? But again, my point is you encrypt your data before you send it out, and then it doesn't really matter all that much who has it, right? Am I oversimplifying that?
No, I think you're about right on that one. At least in my thought process.
The comeback on that is the security that we have today is adequate for today, but will it be adequate for tomorrow? What happens if whatever security, Diffie-Hellman 7 or whatever they're out there, what if tomorrow a vulnerability is announced for that? And then if somebody has your data, then boom, your stuff is out in the open. Now, I know that's a random example, but that is something that the tinfoil advisors would throw back in your face. Whereas if you had your data, then so what? You still have it. So, I mean, that's a far left field cry on why it would not be good enough. But
no, I get your point. So I encrypt something, I send it to Dropbox. They make a backup of it. They could hold that backup for decades. And then when technology gets to the point where 256-bit Blowfish encryption is seconds to crack, they have my data stored. I would say that the value of that data has a time span on it. And so at the time when that becomes crackable, it's probably no longer practically useful.
Well, we would hope not.
Unless I'm encrypting my, my porn. I don't know. I don't know what. I can't think of an example in a regular life, right? I mean, Jared Fogle could have done some service from an encryption, but in my, my practical everyday life, I can't think of anything that is both sensitive and timeless.
Yeah, there's very few things that would be. Very few things would be then in that particular boat. In my opinion, there are some banking data. Maybe your biometrics or your bio data for things that you can't change. Those would be that would be timeless.
Is that what you were going to say?
Yeah. Just pretty much exactly what Chris said. Something that you have your Social Security on. If you keep a copy of your tax returns, which I keep mine, but like I say, I keep them locally. So 5 years from now, if that got cracked, that's my Social Security number and my address where I worked, and so you've set an identity thief up, big time, because you're not yes, for one person that's not a big deal, but how many hundreds, if not thousands, of people do that? So, and again, I understand we're talking not practically feasible to worry about, but within the realm of possibility.
I was having he scared the use of clipboard managers on Android, because you never know what could get access to that clipboard. So if he's using LastPass and he's copying a super encrypted password into the clipboard manager so that he can paste it into the website, who knows what happens with the data that's in that clipboard manager. My comeback to that, and I think it ties into this conversation, is not only does it have to be sensitive and timeless, but context matters. So if I copy a long random string of text into a clipboard, there's you could make a reasonable assessment that that's probably a password, but you don't know what it's a password to, because I haven't used the clipboard to paste in the address to the website. Right. I haven't used the clipboard to paste in my username, so you don't know the username that goes with that password. I think that we tend to get so locked in on security, we forget practicality. So, there are several things that has to happen. It has to be timely, it has to be sensitive, and there has to be context to it. And unless you meet all three of those criteria, having the data doesn't actually do any good.
Right.
Seth, I can see you want to disagree with me there.
No,
say something.
You raise valid points that are true, but again, for a one-off type thing, it's not practical. But if you have that information over a period, then you build your context. Yeah. So anyway, I know.
No, I get the point there. You can construct context through time and effort. You can construct context. So if you are, a U.S. senator or a UN secretary general, then your data is such that you need to prevent people from constructing context. If you're just random guy on the street, it's not worth the effort to construct context. There are lower hanging fruits available.
Right.
And that ties in with our first bit of listener feedback. Mr. Crash is actually somebody on the internet who agrees with me. Imagine that.
What?
We got some listener feedback. Okay, I wrote this.
Wait a minute. Yeah. Mark Cockrell, Mr. Crash.
Yes,
I see a pattern.
Yeah, I think so.
So he says, hey, everyone at EDL, on your discussion at episode 201, I have to agree with you, Mark. Here are some reasons. Back in the quote-unquote good old days, your neighbors knew everything you did or didn't do, and they told everybody who didn't already knew. If you live in a small town or are from a small town, you know exactly what I mean. Back in the good old days, we didn't have paper shredders, so where did your phone bills go? That included everyone you talked to and who they called, and including the 976 numbers. I don't know why I put Seth in there, but that's right. That's right into the trash, complete and usually in the envelope they came in. Along with that, there was no electric filing or banking. So where did all your bank statements go? Bills, old checkbooks, magazine subscriptions, old medical prescriptions, and prescription bottles? Yep, right in the trash, where anybody, including those trash diggers, could find out all your information as well. In that 90s apartment complex and in the 90s, apartment complexes and homeowners who were renting out property could now do a credit check on you. Ever have that scumbag landlord? I did. And they got the following information from you: full name, social security number, age, where you were born, 3 or 4 friends' names and their phone numbers in the form of character reference. From that, they could do a credit check, and they got the following: a standard credit report, a credit score, a criminal background check, a sex offender background check, unlawful detainer and eviction history, an employment verification, and an OFAC terrorist search. Then even before that was credit cards. Remember back in the day, people would warn you about credit cards? I remember my parents saying, stick to writing checks. Now, we don't do checks. We take it directly out of our accounts via Amazon. We pay bills over the phone to any schmo that represents the company we're dealing with. Let's talk Not talk about the new car or buy a new house or whatever you gave Verizon to sign that 2-year contract to get the new unsecured phone. After all that rambling, I don't think we're any worse off. I actually think people are more secure. People around us know absolutely nothing about us. The neighbors I have, if I bumped into them at the store, I wouldn't even know they were actually neighbors. I don't socialize with my neighbors, unlike when I was young. You can do things online that used to require going somewhere to enjoy, from sports to concerts. Also, at the corner store, most likely has someone working who A, doesn't live anywhere near you, or B, has no clue who you are, and no one will tell you to drink a fifth of, and no one to tell that you drink a fifth of vodka a week. Not that there are any neighbors who would actually care. Same with your pharmacists, supermarket workers, and even the gym you work out in. Yeah, you can even walk around today, and most people you pass wouldn't know or even care who you are. So he argues that our disconnected world breeds anonymity by the fact that nobody cares.
I could see that being there too. So I really don't know where else to go with that. I mean, he kind of nailed every head, and in one fashion or another, that's kind of the way the world is right now.
I could poke a few holes in it and say that those you could do those things because the idea was not popularly known to go, rifling through your garbage, and today it is considered sort of a standard practice. If you want to steal somebody's identity, identity theft was around in the 70s, 80s, and 90s, but it was not so prevalent as it is now. And I think that goes to Seth's point. Here I am making somebody else's point for him who disagrees with me, and that's that things have gotten so much easier now. That it's more important to us to take care of the things that we wouldn't have cared for before because now they're easy.
Mm-hmm.
Any comments, Seth?
No, I mean that's it. We are less trusting and less trustworthy as a society. So we have to do more to secure ourselves because the common good bar seems to be much lower than it used to be. So either that or I just recognize more how crappy everybody's been all along. One of those two.
My old phone bills, electric bills, all that sort of stuff. You know what I do with those? I don't put them in the paper shredder. I stack them up and I use them for fire starters in the winter. Not because it's safe to burn them, but because I'm too cheap to buy those little wax and sawdust things. Those are expensive. And so I just stuff a few under some wood, and set a match to it, and walk away.
And it works.
Yes. So there's a little housekeeping tip and a security tip. Save up your old bills and start fires with them. They might actually work better if you shred them first. I haven't tried that.
Oh, there you go. Yeah, that might work.
And next up, David comments on Old Man Son. First off, congratulations on reaching somewhere around 200 episodes of the show. And I hope there's many more to come. With that out of the way, I wanted to touch base on the subject you guys had brought up in, touch base. I went totally corporate. He didn't write touch base. I just have heard touch base thousands of times a day, every day since I entered the corporate world, that I inserted that in there. I apologize, David, for making you a corporate DB.
So what we had to do was put a pin in his listener feedback.
Let's circle back
so we
to
can
that.
circle back around to what Mark was doing and allocate the resources necessary to explain the situation. Having said that, let's circle back around, take the pin out, and continue with the listener feedback. Go, Mark.
With that out of the way, I wanted to touch on the subject you guys had brought up in episode 201, starting with Son's stance on white hat hackers. I feel like Son is an old guy with a dog who only cleans up after it a few days a year. The white hat hackers are the neighborhood kids who come in and surprise the old man by picking up the dog crap. But the old man only tells them to get off his lawn and that he'll call the cops if they trespass again. While they, Son, are correct and it's illegal to view their source code, a point you guys did bring up, they're still being ungrateful little brats about the whole thing. I don't know, maybe I should start yelling at kids to get off my lawn because I think that constructive criticism isn't a bad thing, even if it's given over some questionable circumstances. I don't think anyone is more wrong or more right in the scenario in any case. I just err on the side of community whenever possible. That's why I enjoy open source so much. Anyway, that's all I had. Later, fellas. David.
I like his thoughts on that.
Yeah, I mean, it's one thing to it's one thing to view the source code, but it's another thing to run standard security protocols at it, and that results in the source code becoming available. So
Right. Or auditing your own software like everybody should, and not everyone does.
So I wonder if Sun has like a crankyoldman.py script that they run that just generates these complaints about hackers.
Maybe. Wouldn't put it past
That's
them.
the way Google would do it for sure.
That's the way I would do it. I mean, really.
yeah, they probably use more JavaScript at Google.
I see you're searching through my source code. Would you like me to help you file a complaint with the FCC?
Oh, it's funny.
And then a couple of bits of feedback from Captain Haddock. First, he asks about Element Opie. He says, "Hey, Mark, how'd you come up with the name Element Opie for your one-show network?" Nice little jab there, Captain Haddock. Thank you very much. It hasn't always been a one-show network. And at one point, I was doing 7 shows a week. But I ran out of co-hosts, plain and simple. But to answer your question, Element Opie is something that I've had for years. Actually, I registered the domain back in 99, 2000, somewhere around there, just because I liked it. It's a play on A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J, K, L, M, N, O, P. Element Opie. And like 3 people in the world ever get that joke. Some people say, hey, that sounds like Element Opie. Yes, it does. Thank you very much. But when we had a show called the Tightwad Tech, in fact, this is all available on the About page at elementopie.com. My co-host and I, Sean, had a show. We started the second show, this one, Everyday Linux, and we realized that we didn't want to go 2 shows on one web address, and I didn't want to do 2 web addresses. So I didn't want to say, to go to the to Everyday Linux website, go to tightwadtech.com/Everyday Linux. That seemed a little silly, and I didn't want to manage 2 websites. I really believe that one owner or content producers per website. I know other people don't agree with me. There are guys out there who open up a website for every podcast. I just don't think that works as well. I think you need to have one entity. And I had already had Element Opie in the bag, and in fact, I don't know that, I'm not going to say never. I don't often refer to it as a network. It's a production company. So I produce content under the license. It's actually DBA. It's not an LLC or anything like that, but under the name Element Opie Production. So I do this podcast. I've done other podcasts. I've got a deal going right now to do an audiobook, and it will be performance copyright Element Opie Productions. So my idea there long term is to be a content producer under the company Element Opie Productions. Currently, the content that we're doing on a regular basis is the Element Opie podcast. So there's probably a longer answer than you were looking for.
But that's okay, because now he knows.
And we do get that question periodically. So, we're going to circle back to it and address that. And apparently he also asked Seth a question privately. Hey, mate, just curious, how do you score such good dev randoms, and what method of searching do you use to find this week in history?
Well, Captain, what I do, I used to, when I had an iPhone 4, I would not own one personally. I use the Wikipedia This Day in History. I got it because I loved it. It's a bunch of trivia, and that's what I like, useless facts. And usually there's a couple on there that have to do with technology, so I get them. I also have a few websites I go to, and just kind of like today, I was actually researching news, and I came across today's This Week in History, and dev/random is just internet archaeology. I go to this website, I click on here, I see what it looks like, I go here, I'm clicking around, I find stuff, and I just but usually what I will do is I will shoot it to myself in an email, and then whenever I'm doing work on the show, I collect those emails and put them in a document for future CES links and This Week in History stuff. So that's how we do it around these here parts.
And Seth has been trolling the web for interesting stuff since long before he was doing this podcast. Since actually before there was a web, he would just go to the library and pick up dictionaries or phone books or whatever and just start randomly scrolling through them. That's the kind of guy he is. He's a data archivist at heart.
Yep. Which is why I hate. That's why I hate people or sites and services telling me stuff I might like. It's like, I want to find it out for myself. Leave me alone and get off my digital lawn. So.
Seth can tell you more about the history of Van Zandt County than you ever want to know, because on one afternoon he'd picked up the phone book and started reading through it. How do I know this? Because he's regaled me many times over the last 25 years with Van Zandt County information.
There you go.
Yep.
Seth, who is Van Zandt County named after?
Isaac Van Zandt, some famous person in Texas history. No, I know he's named after Isaac Van Zandt, but I never can remember what Isaac Van Zandt is famous for. I've looked it up many times, but it was so unremarkable it just doesn't stick.
He's probably a Civil War veteran, so people will be petitioning to change the name of the county soon.
No, it was Van Zandt County pre-Civil War, and actually, here's a fact. Van Zandt County had the lowest percentage of slave population in the settled Texas area. It was much lower than any others.
You see what I did there?
This...
All I had to do was toss out a fact that was wrong, and immediately his, not only do I have to be right, everyone around me has to be right, gene kicked in, and he had to correct me. It's great.
Yep. There's something wrong in the internet. We have to fix it.
I don't have much, okay? Just let me have this little corner of this desk I'm sitting at has mine, and I'll be happy.
Oh, I don't know if we can do that.
I can just see Seth, later down in life when he's married. His wife's like, honey, you coming to bed? Yeah, just a minute. Someone's wrong on the internet.
That XKC, or is that XKCD's strip of that? Yeah.
Is there one? That's cool.
Yeah. Yeah, there is.
I probably ripped that off because I read that all the time and just don't remember it.
Yep. I saw it just the other day. My wife sent it to me going, so this is you every night, isn't it?
I'm the Batman of the internet. I'm fixing grammar errors left and right.
I don't know about grammar errors. I'm horrible, but yes.
The one and only edit I've ever made to Wikipedia, I cleaned up a guy's grammar, and I'm not kidding, within less than a minute, 45 seconds, he had reversed those edits and put his bad grammar back and reported me.
Really?
Yes, for having corrected his grammar.
What?
Yes.
That's just ridiculous.
So I was like, this Wikipedia thing, it's not for me.
Wow.
I didn't dispute any of the content in the article. I just fixed the sentence structure on a few things. And he must have been just watching it or had a cron task checking it out or something. But as soon as that change was made, he went back and immediately changed it and reported me as a whatever they report people as on Wikipedia.
Wow. Some people.
Intelligent, I guess.
It was an article on sepia toning, by the way. That sort of quasi brown and black way of doing film. Originally, the sepia was actually squid ink. That's the name of it. And that was used as the method for developing the film. And, today it's a filter on Instagram. Back in the day, it was high technology. And so he had a good article about it, but some of his sentence structure just didn't make sense. It was a little convoluted and just not right. So being the grammar Nazi that I am, I had to fix it. And he reported me.
Well, just bad taste, right?
Because it's difficult to be the only guy who's right on the internet.
Actually,
That's
probably all he did was just copy it from some other source, and he got mad that somebody corrupted his copying. That's probably what happened.
That is. There are large parts of Wikipedia that are just that. True. I had a smooth transition somewhere in there to Linux Academy. It was lost. So linuxacademy.com is your place on the web for you to learn about the skills necessary to become a certified Linux professional. Their stated goal is to take you from being a novice or maybe a semi-advanced computer user who doesn't know much about Linux, teach you the Linux skills to go along with your computer skills and prepare you for Linux certification. They do this through they're step-by-step videos, but as I've said so many times before, it's way more than just videos. It's videos, it's paper printouts that accompany those videos, it's lesson plans, it's this amazing lab environment that lets you fire up virtual machines that are lightning fast and safe, so you can do your experimentation without breaking anything. And they're expanding way beyond Linux now. They've got Ruby on Linux. They've got SQL database. They've got Amazon Web Services stuff. So even though the name is Linux Academy, they really are about teaching you modern computing in general. And it's independently certified, high-quality content. They have partnerships with the people who are giving the certification test, because the people who take the test want people to get certified. and they recognize this place as a source of high quality content and a good way to get people certified. So they've teamed up. And I'm not going to go on and on about it, but I will tell you that you can check all this out for. It's the prices really. I'm surprised they haven't gone up. I'm expecting them to go up any day now, because $25 a month for what they offer is just really too little. It's too cheap. And in fact, I think people are probably going to look at it and they're going to think it's less valuable than it is because it's so inexpensive. If you go to some other site on the web that offers this level of content and this level of community interaction and this many professionals in the field, you're going to pay significantly more than that. And so I think people still equate in their minds it's the Apple effect or the Bentley effect, whatever you want to call it, where the more you pay, the higher value it is. I know that, myself, when I'm looking for something on Amazon and I see something that's 3 cents a piece and something that's $3 a piece, I immediately tend to think that the $3 one must be better. So get in on this now, because the Linux Academy prices probably aren't going to stay where they are. $25 a month, that's actually the highest you'll ever pay. If you buy three months at a time, it's $65 for the total, so that's $10 off right there. If you buy for a full year, 12 months, it's $215, which breaks down to just less than $18 a month. Don't take my advice. Don't go buy a year of it just because I said it's great. I really encourage you to check it out for a month. $25. Anybody can afford $25. Check it out. I get email from people all the time. When I get X and I have enough money to try Linux Academy, just don't wait. Just do it now. This is your career, especially if you're a young guy or girl just starting out. Just do it. $25. You can afford it. Take it, dip your toe in, look around. If you don't like it, walk away, no harm done. But you're going to like it, and you're not going to walk away. LinuxAcademy.com. If you go to linuxacademy.com/everydaylinux, you get a discount off of even that price. Check them out. Let them know we sent you.
Yeah, one thing, in the past, when they have raised the prices, you're locked in at your price. I bought when it was significantly less, and my price has not gone up anytime he's raised it. So I'm still getting an excellent value for my money, and I pay for it. So if you know me, you can get no greater endorsement than that.
Yeah, that's pretty much it.
Yeah, I'm not only a client, I'm also the owner. No, that's not right. So anyway, moving on to some long abandoned news. Some of these articles are going to be a few weeks old because we haven't done news in a while because we've had such great topics, or at least I think they're great topics. But Samsung doing it again with leading the world on the hard drive front, but this time with SSD drives.
Yes, they how does 16 terabytes of storage sound? And they, instead of calling it a hard drive, they're going to call it JBOF for just a bunch of flash. But freaking 16 terabytes of storage packed in a 2.5-inch case.
Wow. That's
Dude,
a lot of storage.
That's walking around with a data center in your hand.
Right.
You know, your laptop is now a portable data center. That's a freaking boatload. And technically, I guess it's only 15.36 terabytes, but it's solid state, so it's super quick. And there you go. I thought this was just amazing, and I wanted to share out there with everybody how awesome it was.
And Samsung put together plans for a server that stuck 48 of these things together for 768 terabytes of data into a single server. Wow.
That's a lot. Could you imagine, though, Arlene, just think about that for 2 seconds. If you had 16 terabytes of storage in your laptop, man, you would have to have one great search system set up to find everything.
Yeah.
That's just crazy amount of space.
Yeah, I predict that will be a new service that Google offers, Google for your own hard drive. It'll be their algorithm that indexes your drive. Because it's just a matter of time, right? I remember many years ago, one of my good friends, Troy, hi Troy, if you're listening, saying, I've got 200 megs of hard drive space just sitting there. I'm never going to use 200 megs of hard drive space. And he was right. On that computer, he never touched it, right? And then we moved on, and now, the typical laptop has a 1 terabyte, 2 terabytes, it's pretty typical. So 16 is way out there, but what, 5 years? That'll be standard. 6 years? Won't be long.
Or less.
Yeah.
Or less, depending on how far flash memory's pricing changes.
Man, just imagine how long it would take SpinRite to check that.
Well, supposedly SpinRite's going to get updated.
Yes. And
Yeah,
and you're
after
talking
he
about flash
finishes-
drives, so that's much faster access anyway.
yeah, that is true.
Once you
But it was
take
a
the
joke. It's
spinning
supposed to be funny.
right, once you take the spinning disc out of the equation, things get so much. I mean, it's more stable, it's faster, there's less physical wear and tear. We did a whole episode about how flash drives, to write them is to destroy them, but
Yep.
most, with the exception of swap, most of our access is read on drive, so it's multiple reads to single writes. And there's no spinning disk. There's no, battery goes way down. That's the reason Apple dumped their spinning disk iPod as soon as NAND flash became readily available. It's a great time to be alive.
And it'll just get bigger.
And has a side note, if you're still using a spinning hard drive, I used to make the argument that it's not a big deal till I got an SSD. And then all of a sudden, I was like, I knew what everybody else was talking about.
Right.
It's a
Spinning
big
drives
deal.
are great for attached storage that you don't need right away. But if you want to get a new computer, just invest in an SSD, and you'll think whatever computer you have is new again.
It's like seeing in color for the first time. It is that stark a difference.
Yeah, it's spooky.
And I used to just think, I mean, guys, I was like, oh, it's not that big of a difference. You're just saying that. And then I got one and I hit on in my laptop, and Windows came up like that. It's
Right.
like, dude, this is awesome. Why didn't you tell me? Oh, wait, you did. So,
Yeah, there's now no speed benefit to suspending to RAM or to the drive. You go ahead and turn it off because it takes just the same amount of time to turn it on as it is to wake it up.
and actually, Windows, I think, boots faster than it comes back on.
Quite
Just
possibly.
like if you were to because it's like, got to think, wait a minute, what was I doing? Hold on, I got to do my startup process so I can get to the okay. Wait, so yeah, just turn it off and then turn it back on later.
And if you're on a laptop, you'll get better battery immediately without doing anything else because you're
Yep,
not spinning that disk anymore.
Yeah, it's amazing.
The things that we've seen, I remember, I'm going to say 97, 98, somewhere around that era. A friend of mine was complaining that my computer was a little slow. And I said, yeah, I just don't want to upgrade until I can get a gig. And he chuckled, said, you're going to be waiting a while, aren't you? Because I just, gigahertz, I thought that was the thing. At that time, there were a few gigahertz machines available, but they were water-cooled. And then, when they finally did come to the market, they had these giant freaking heat sinks on them. Now, phones have 4 gigahertz processors in them, running off a battery with no fans at all. It's just amazing how far we've come in just a few years, and how far we're going to come in the next few years. The things my kids are going to see just boggles the mind.
Well, just the things we're gonna see.
Yeah.
I mean, just think of it that way. We're gonna be the dudes in Wall-E, sitting in the cool chairs.
Yeah, I think that was supposed to be a cautionary tale, actually.
Oh, is that what it is?
Not an aspirational thing.
But think about it, man. The chairs were comfy looking.
Yeah, unfortunately, some of us already are those guys. So,
So everything old is new again. We have all this great new technology, but now with Node.js, you can write COBOL.
I thought this was this is a 19. If you ever want to code like it's 1959, this is from an Ars Technica article. Have you ever wanted to just cut and paste some of that legacy COBOL code from mainframe applications into your latest web application? No. Well, there's a Romanian web developer, and it's some Romanian name there, has just developed a way to do it. He created a COBOL bridge for Node JavaScript. So there you go. COBOL just won't die. It is still there, and now you can code it straight from your mainframe into whatever so you can go back to all those old mainframe apps, and we can add more apps to the App Store. Yay, COBOL! It's still alive.
And it's there are still a lot of mainframe machines running around. One of my friends is actually a mainframe administrator in the year 2015. They
Wow.
still exist, and there's probably still some running the old COBOL or MIPS or whatever. But now you can just copy paste that code right into your own web app and run it on your iPhone. How cool is that? I don't know how useful it is, but it's cool.
It's cool.
I mean, you know, you can take that old mainframe that probably has about 1/10 of the horsepower of whatever your latest smartphone is, and just think of the electricity savings you can get by dumping that mainframe and running it as a web app on some smartphone. So there's got to be some value in that.
Yeah, I mean, if you could literally get all the functionality of a mainframe on, you know, a standard device, that actually has a lot of value there.
On a Raspberry Pi.
Yeah, there you go.
Imagine that. Suppose you could take your Raspberry Pi back to 1959 and say, you see the third floor right there? I hold more power than the third floor in the palm of my hand. And they would go, huh?
Yeah.
And then engineers would drool and want to have your love babies.
One of the books that we've talked about on the show that I read/listened to a while back, The Off to Be the Wizard. One of the characters in there is referring to the modern iPhone, and he says something to the effect of, "You mean that device in the palm of your hand that has more computing power than the entire computer science department of MIT University the year I graduated? That device?" Yes, that one.
That's a great book too, and a good series.
I haven't been interested in it enough to continue the rest of the series, but it was a fun read.
The third one's a little rough, but the second one's pretty good.
Well, while we're on the topic, I'm almost finished with Memory of Earth, based on the based on conversations of the show and suggestions from listeners. I checked it out. You know, it's okay. It's not Orson Scott Card's best. I'm probably not going to continue the rest of the series. There, you know, there's just not enough there for me to want to move on. So that's my short review of the Memory of Earth. Moving on, Windows 10. Maybe you've heard of it. It's Microsoft's new thing. They've released 3 patches in a pretty short period of time, but what they're not doing is telling us what's in those patches.
Yeah, so basically they are becoming just like by every other we mean like Apple and Google, and they're just putting updates out there because, you know, used to there was a knowledge base article that told you what the patch was about, and you could see, hey, is this patch going to affect this $4 billion piece of software our company needs? Now, not so much. And you know, one of the things we've talked about before, if you don't have the professional version of Windows 10, they're just going to update it really without telling you about it. So now not only are they going to update it without telling you about it, they're not telling you what they're updating. So they're just, hey, we fixed Windows. Welcome to the brave new world.
That's interesting. That kind of scares me as an old system admin, because I had stuff that was broken all the time because of window updates.
But you know, I mean, they're not. It's not that they're not telling you that updates are coming. They're not telling you what's in the updates. And I'm actually in agreement with this philosophy because Microsoft has been, you know, sort of unusually frank about what it's fixing. And a lot of hackers wait for security fix announcements and they go immediately try to compromise what they're fixing on unpatched machines, particularly in the enterprise where people like you, Chris, are reticent to update because updates have been known to break things. So by being forthright about what they're fixing, they're actually making it easier, I think, for hackers to go attack that thing. So they're changing that philosophy in the idea of security through obscurity.
See, what I think would be better, a better way of doing it is to say that by, you know, the general populace doesn't get the updated information, but then if you sign up for if you're a Microsoft insider or whatever you have to do to register with them, they can get the white pages saying that that's what it is.
So you think there are no hackers that are also Microsoft insiders?
I didn't say that. No, I didn't say that, but it would help mitigate who has access to it.
Well, I understand why they're doing it, but the drawback is, you know, there's lots of businesses who run custom apps, and so some update that they don't know what's going to, it's like, hey, will this update break our app? I don't know. Let's check it out and see.
Yeah.
You know, that's not a good way to do it. So again, it's not that what they're doing is wrong, but I think changing midstream kind of, I guess it's not midstream, but changing the way they've conditioned their user base to expect it is wrong. So
I think,
is it necessary? Maybe. But
I don't think I'm wrong in saying that there are a lot of enterprises that still haven't thoroughly vetted Windows 7, let alone Windows 8 and Windows 10.
Right.
So the enterprise route is always going to be way behind the rest of people because you're scared, right? If an update to IE breaks something mission critical, you could be losing millions of dollars per minute for every minute of downtime while they're trying to fix it. So I understand it. But I think there's just no way around this, except maybe going the way Microsoft did for so long, having an enterprise offering and a desktop or a customer offering. They did that for years with Windows NT and Windows 95. They were essentially the same OS, but on two different tracks. And with Windows XP, they merged those two. And really was what caused enterprise people around the world to kind of panic, and they have been ever since.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just, the answer is stop using Windows. And if I had been paying more attention to the show lineup, I would have put these two together. But now you can go Ubuntu. If you don't want to stop using Windows and move to Linux, you can put Ubuntu on your mainframe. So not only can you get rid of your mainframe by copying COBOL into Node.js, now you can actually load Ubuntu right onto your mainframe.
Yes, there's always some good announcements come out of LinuxCon, and LinuxCon was this last week, and I'm actually kind of bummed I didn't get to go. So I want to plan. I enjoyed it last year, and I don't think I want to go back next year. But anyway, IBM and Canonical announced that Ubuntu Linux will soon be running on mainframes. One of the great benefits of mainframes is the ability to run. You could load up thousands of virtual machines or many thousand containers. So instead of having a whole bunch of servers, you could essentially have a mainframe doing that. And so IBM is going to be working with Ubuntu to bring it to their Power architecture. So
selling it pre-installed.
Linux. Yeah.
So it's not just it's now available, but you can actually buy from IBM a box specifically designed and pre-installed with Ubuntu Linux. Ubuntu GNU/Linux.
And we all just died a little inside, or at least I did.
So that's I still think that the hope of Linux on the desktop has gone. Obi-Wan was the only hope, and he died. But Ubuntu or Linux on the server is going to be world dominant in just a matter of time.
Yep.
And further buttressing my point, Hulu now hates Linux.
Darn Hulu.
Pretty much. Well, you can kind of thank Chrome for killing Flash because Hulu has moved from Flash to Flash plus DRM, and so the only way to get it to work in Linux, and Hulu's actually one of the oldest streaming services around. I think they've added 17 more since we started this podcast. So if you want it to work on a Linux machine, you have to use this old Firefox thing that Firefox hasn't supported in 3 years. So it's one of those, I think it's good that we're getting rid of Flash because of how cumbersome it was. But until they decide to move to HTML5, the drawback is, because you can't really get Silverlight on Linux. Hey, you could try to use Wine maybe, or Firefox, or, have a Windows virtual machine or something. But it just kind of goes in there with, according to Hulu, Linux desktop is kind of like a second-class citizen. And unfortunately, it's not really a big enough market for them to care about.
Neither is Hulu a big enough market for me to care about. This doesn't mean a thing. What does mean a thing is that both Amazon Prime and Netflix are, aggressively against Linux. So now you can finally do it with Chrome, but Netflix doesn't really like it all that much. And as far as I know, there's no way to watch Amazon Prime on a Linux box. And it's not the OS. It's not like they hate Linux. They hate openness. And when your whole business is centered around protecting content protection and protecting copyright, I understand it. I understand Netflix's business need to keep their DRM intact, because if they didn't do that, studios would not offer them their content at all, because it's not Netflix's fault, it's Hollywood's fault. They are so scared that their stuff is going to be pirated. And as we know, DRM has completely killed piracy. Nobody has ever copied a DVD since they introduced DRM. So I understand their need to cling to that. But the fact is, it's yet another reason that Linux is going to be left in the cold, because Linux OS's distributions refuse to pay the fees. You can license that. And part of your Windows license almost always includes that DRM when you get Silverlight or whatever that's in there. Linux distros refuse to do it, and when some sort of cross the picket line and offer to do it, the fellow Linux community shames them for it.
Except for our friends at Black Lab, what was it, Black Lab Linux?
Mm-hmm.
They seem to be doing all right.
And there are people who do it, and other people who criticize them for it, and it's just another case where the Linux community is both our greatest strength and our greatest weakness.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
It's time for content producers to wake up and realize that they're not helping anything. Right? So, as I've said many times on the show, the first thing I do when I buy a DVD is rip it, because I have kids. And I rip it and I put it on my media center, and we distribute it and we watch it on all our devices, and I'm a felon because of that. And that's exactly what Hollywood doesn't want me to do. That's exactly what Disney doesn't want me to do. They offer their what's the something light, blue light or something.
Oh, it's ultraviolet.
Ultraviolet, yeah, blue light. They offer ultraviolet, and they come, complete with digital copy. All you have to do is install this software and do this thing and sign this, and then you can use it on this device. But if you want to use it on another device, you have to deactivate this device. But you can only do that 5 times in the entire existence of your life, and then you can't watch the movie anymore. Or you can fire up Handbrake and watch it whenever you want. And it's just, the problem is that I still rip every movie, and every now and then I have to crank on one a little longer or go use a different tool, but I've never found one I just flat couldn't rip. So it's not helping anything.
Exactly.
Well, no.
There are plenty of tools out there.
They want you to just have a monthly subscription. If you have a monthly subscription to whatever and they're constantly getting money from you, then you don't need to worry about ripping, because you can always access it over whatever, because you've paid your monthly license.
As long as I have bandwidth, and I don't mind paying AT&T a confiscatory rate for bits, sure, that works.
Yeah, it's a win-win situation. It's a win for Disney. It's a win for Microsoft. It's a win for AT&T, and it's a win for whoever else. It's a win for everybody but the consumer. It's a win,
and it's a lose for the consumer. Yes,
pretty much. And
nobody cares about the consumer, because apparently you can dump on your customer for 30 years straight, and they'll keep buying from you. Microsoft, I think that's actually their corporate motto, dumping on our customers for the last 40 years.
Something like that. So at least that's what it feels like anymore. Which is why we're Linux.
We're Linux adjacent.
Yeah.
We try.
We're
Linux.
life in the context of Linux.
So in the interest of time, I'm going to only do a couple of more, but because the Command Line Godfather is with us, and because we've been storing this one for a while, we've got to talk about the fact that Ubuntu is trying to take the K out of Kubuntu.
Over my dead body.
Well, you must have died some time ago, Chris.
I know.
Because this is an older story, and this is from a Computer World article, but a disagreement arose between the founder of Kubuntu and the Ubuntu Community Council, and it's kind of left the project rudderless. Has Jonathan Riddle, he left Kubuntu's governing body late last month, and a month before he was forced out of his post, has the de facto head even though he kind of helped start it in 2005. And it's weird because the organization that demanded and got his resignation is the Ubuntu Community Council. And so a council that really doesn't have any authority over Kubuntu, but they still kind of got him kicked out. So, and yes, it's an older story now, but we've been waiting and waiting, and so now we're talking about it. So go, Chris. The rant is set up for you.
Oh, the layers of anger just is hard to even say. The other thing I wonder why, though, is I read the article, but I didn't see any spots where it actually said what the disagreement was. Did you guys catch it?
No.
You're assuming I actually read the article. I didn't.
They were kind of close-lipped about it. So there was a disagreement, but nobody's admitting there was a disagreement kind of thing.
Yeah, so there's a lot of questions that gets popped up about this, but so does, and again, I didn't see anything, but it doesn't sound like they're gonna remove the KDE from Ubuntu. They're just removing the Kubuntu's distribution path.
Right. There will always be KDE in whatever Linux because nutbags like you, I'm sorry, because the devoted people seem to think that it's the right way to do things. Despite the fact that it's resource intensive and confusing and they want to steer everything to the control panel and take control away from the user. Despite all of those things, people really seem to like KDE, and so it will always be available.
That's right, because KDE is the best way to go. Actually, no, my love is currently not KDE. I've moved down to LXDE or XFCE because of the fact that GNOME and KDE are so intensive. My current laptop just can't handle it anymore. But anyway, my love will always be for KDE. But I think it's ridiculous that a governing body of a different company can push so hard to get somebody ousted unless there was some really bad financial maybe dealings.
Well, they're an official spin of Ubuntu, so that gives Ubuntu the right to, sort of pull the plug on them if they want. They can't make the work stop, but they can certainly make them unofficial. And apparently the Kubuntu guys would rather dump their leader than lose their official status.
Right.
Yeah. So there's still Kubuntu. It's just Kubuntu without Jonathan Riddle, who's kind of the whole reason Kubuntu existed in the first place.
Exactly, which is why I was always impressed with the Kubuntu team because I thought they did a great job. They always seem to have, at first it was within days of the Ubuntu release, the Kubuntu release was released, and then it was so seamless after that point. But people quit taking your ball and going home.
It's the Linux way.
It is.
Yeah, I'm hoping we can get another 10 or 12 distros out of this one split because if there's one thing we need more of, it is choice in the Linux desktop environment. That's my platform, and I'm sticking to it.
Cruft Ubuntu coming to a distro near you soon. Shifting gears slightly to a company that I used to like and now I don't anymore. HTC, I used to think made the best Android phones. And I was actually a big fan of the HTC Sense UI. I know a lot of people weren't, but I thought that they did a lot of enhancements to Android back before Android was mature. Now Lollipop I like as a pure environment. I think they've filled in a lot of those gaps. But before that, Samsung and HTC and I forget the other one that was popular. They all had to step in and do these things, and I thought Sense did the best job of it. But over the last few years, HTC phones have dropped off in quality. The Sense UI has become clunky, and now just another reason to hate them, they get it on themselves to serve you ads without bothering to need an app.
Yep.
Yeah. So basically, they are pushing advertisement as part of like the custom theme, and so it's so you would receive it like in much the same way you would like a text message. They're just like saying, hey, here's an ad for whatever because they gave us some money, so now we're going to show it to you, and you have our phone, so you have no choice. Have fun viewing the ad.
One time is all it would take for me to install CyanogenMod on my phone. That would be it. I would be done.
Well, the ads don't come as text messages. The ads come in under their what's it called? Their Sense
Right.
panel.
He was saying just in the same way that a text message would. It's an app that pops
Yeah.
up. It's it's becomes a notification, quote unquote, but not really.
No, where it shows up, because I have an HTC M8. So what the native advertising that they're talking about is in two places. The first one is in, you know how like on the Google Now launcher, when you go to the far left panel, you get the Google Now.
Yep.
In Sense, there's I don't know what that's called, but it's where they have all of the different feed that you can go through. You'll see ads in that, kind of like the Twitter ads, where it'll just be oh, you might like this, which is a little annoying, but not too bad. The one that really lights me up when I see it is when they take over your lock panel with an ad. And it's not an ad that I'm guessing that they didn't pay for, but it's saying like, because I have Yelp on my phone, I get pop-ups over my lock screen that say, hey, it's 9 o'clock. You hungry? Go eat at Joe's.
So here's all kinds of reason that just flies all over me. HTC's already made their money from me. I have bought the phone. I bought their hardware, and I bought their software on that hardware. Whether I bought it, through a subsidized contract with, which is really a bad term because it's not subsidized, it's screwitized, through a phone company, or whether I just went to the store and said, I want that HTC phone right there. You've gotten all the money you deserve to get from me. And to try to wring a few more pennies out of me by stealing my time, that's all you are stealing my time by making me read that, acknowledge it, and dismiss it. And it's just, it's reprehensible, and it's wrong, and it's inexcusable. There is no valid excuse, no business reason that this is an okay thing to do.
It's horrible.
There's one business reason. It makes them money.
Yep. And they're hurting for money. HTC is in a bad
Then
way.
make better phones.
Well, not just better phones, make better choices. One of their HTC phones that had the fingerprint reader stored the fingerprints in clear text in a file that was globally readable. Really?
Yeah.
Does that even sound like good practice?
It's that old thing of, can we make it work? Yes, good. Ship it out the door.
That's exactly what it was.
Yep.
So yeah, no, HTC is probably not going to get another penny from me after this last one, and the fact that and I don't know who to blame for this next gripe of mine about HTC, if it's HTC or if it's Verizon, but they're both pissing me off. My phone was supposed to get Lollipop, full version of Lollipop, 5.1 whatever. I'm still not on it. I still am, and except for the fact I've taken the remediation steps, stage fright can still totally blow my phone apart. The fix is out there. It's on their other phones. Why isn't it on this one?
So you'll go buy another one.
Yeah. And not an HTC.
Yeah, I would be on on the web looking for ways to ROM that phone as soon as the show is over, if not before. I mean, the first time they showed me an ad, that would have been the end of it for me.
Well, the thing is I moved off of Sense a long time ago and put on Google Now as my launcher, so that doesn't affect me at all. Because if you remove Sense as your default, you don't see any of it. It's just now the Google Now launcher doing all the work.
Yeah, but that doesn't mean there's not tons of crappy code still in there.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I'm very well aware of it. I just haven't been able to find a way to ROM this particular phone because all of the to do like CyanogenMod on it, they all need to have pre-Lollipop on the phone in order to do it. Well, since I moved to Lollipop, it's locked up because of that the security setting that Verizon uses to lock that phone.
Mm-hmm.
Bummer.
Yeah,
I think I've mentioned it on the show before. I'm in the market for a new phone. I'll buy one, pretty soon. I've saved up my pennies, and I've pretty much decided I can't buy from an American company. There just isn't one that is making a good product with trustworthy software on it. So I'm going to have to go with somebody straight out of Korea or China and have it boot up with a foreign language boot screen, just to be able to get a phone that I think is of decent quality. And that frustrates me as a patriotic, red-blooded American. We freaking invented most of this technology, but we're so caught up in trying to make a buck instead of making a product that we're just not doing a good job of it anymore. It frustrates me.
What about the Motorola one? That's a good phone.
It's an okay phone. The phone is okay. The hardware is adequate. The software, I'm not fond of their customizations. But of course,
is that the OnePlus?
No,
No.
OnePlus is made by OnePlus. That's the name of the company.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
And the OnePlus
And
2
they're
is
Korean,
garbage.
I think.
Yeah. Did you guys look at the OnePlus 2, the specs on that?
Well, I wouldn't call it garbage. It's just it didn't excite me.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I guess I can't call it garbage either. But they, no NFC. It was just like, really? Why would you rip out things that are being used?
So they can sell it for $300.
Well, I suppose.
They had to pay the license to get the USB Type-C on there, and so they had to make compromises. That we've talked about this before. It's the thing is that the American consumer and more the global consumer, we want everything for nothing, and so companies have to make trade-offs. And there's like 4 ways they can make a trade-off: either in the hardware, the software, the trustware, or the wetware. Right? They can treat their employees like crap. And so you get a cheap phone that was put together by a Vietnamese 7-year-old girl, but it's high quality and it's got good software on it. So, if you want something for nothing, compromises have to be made somewhere.
Have you thought about going back to the old Nexus?
I've thought about lots of things. The new Nexus 6 line, the current Nexus 6 line, just meh, it doesn't impress me. There are rumors of a second Nexus 5. I'll probably check that out, but I don't want to wait till Christmas just because I'm waiting for the next best thing. If you're always waiting for the next best thing, you're never going to buy anything.
So hurry up and buy it so they can come out with the models you really want.
Right.
The rest of the people can be happy.
Yeah. Because
So-
they're all just
Take one for
waiting. Has Mark bought a phone yet? No? All right, we can't release yet. We got to wait.
Take one for the internet, Mark.
There's a website, hasmarkboughtaphoneYet.com, and it just displays yes or no. And as soon as that goes to yes, then new phones will be released.
And you haven't
then I'll-
seen the markphonepurchaserumors.com?
I think it's interesting that the Nexus, when you go over to the Nexus website, that they have the 5 still available.
Yeah. And it's a fine phone, except it's the one I have. Why would I want to buy another thing that I have?
Yeah. It just surprises me. Sorry, guys.
It was a very urgent call.
Yeah, well, I'm on call this week, so.
All right. Well, it's about time for us to wrap up anyway. So, Seth, let's move on to your This Week in History.
Okay. Not all history is a success. Case in point, August the 21st, 1995, Nintendo released the Virtual Boy in North America, the stilt-legged tabletop gaming console, which offered a unique red stereoscopic 3D display, attempted to ride a wave of popular interest in virtual reality, and that wave of popular interest crashed into the cliffs of,
It made everybody either get a migraine or puke or both.
Yeah. It was
So,
horrible.
but that was This Week in History 20 years ago.
And you know who hasn't learned from that? Modern people trying to do VR, because it still either gives you a headache or makes you want to puke.
Yeah.
Yep.
All
So
right.
anyway,
Enough
that's This
about
Week
that.
in History.
So, Seth, what do you have for your dev/random this week?
Okay, I've been saving this one for a while. This is some World War II trivia for you here. This is an IPW and prisoner of war interrogation from World War II. There was this GI in Europe who this intelligence officer gave him this report and told him to keep hold of it, but then he never saw that intelligence officer again. So 70 years later, he still had it, and you can actually scroll down this and actually read it. And it's just basically an intelligence officer kind of told the story of this German POW and kind of what happened. And it's just neat history that isn't going to change anything, but it's just kind of something cool to read. So if you want to take a few minutes and read a POW story about the close of World War II in Europe, check out this BusinessInsider.com article. And that's got to be a good random topic for us to close the show out with.
You know, just glancing at this, it seems true that as terrible as this guy's experience was, the POWs toward the end of the war, the Nazi POWs had it really good compared to the rest of the Nazi army, you know, who was just being slaughtered left and right because they didn't have what they needed and their leadership was fragmented. And yeah, it was actually a good thing to be a POW in an American custody toward the end of the war.
Yeah, lots of people on the German Eastern Front, they would leave, they would abandon the Eastern Front and get across Europe as fast as they can so they could surrender to the Americans rather than the Russians.
Yeah, don't surrender to the Russians. They knew that was a bad thing.
Yeah, they thought, guys, we pissed the Russians off too much to give them a chance to pay back. So
good stuff. And that's Seth's digital archaeology at work. So this is the part of the show where I tell you how you can and why you should contact us. Go to elementop.com, click the Contact Us button at the top of the page, send us an email to edl@elementop.com, or call us at 559-IM-OPI and leave us a voicemail. We encourage you to do these things because, as I've said so many times before, we do this show for you. Seth and Chris and I could get together and pontificate without all the expensive gear and without recording and without editing and production. We do this for you, because we hope that we produce something that is entertaining and educational and motivating and, hopefully a bright spot in your day. And we need you to tell us how to do that better. You know, I love getting emails that say, great job, guys, keep up the good work. But I also love it when I get a substantive complaint. You know, not just a random, I don't like this, get off my lawn complaint, but, you know, you guys did this or you're doing this and the show would be better if, because as I've said so many times before, you drive this show. You drive what we do. We drive what we talk about. We drive to some extent how we do it. So please give us some feedback. Let us know how we're doing. If you like it, tell other people about it. If you don't like it, tell me about it. But we look forward to having you here. Thank you for sticking with us for yet another hour-and-a-half show. Chris, Seth, thank you for hanging out, for being the best podcast hosts that I can afford on my budget. And we look forward to seeing you back next week. But for now, that ends this episode of Everyday Linux.
Bye, y'alls.
See ya.
All right. YouTube viewers, see you later, everybody.
See ya.
Y'all come back now here.